I will call the Blackstone Millville Regional School District School Committee for September 15th to order. If we could all stand for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If you could remain standing for a moment of silence, please. On August 31st, Grace Burns of Millville, 101 years old, passed away. She was also not only a lifelong member of the Millville community, she was a 23-year employee of our district, serving as a lunch lady. So we'll have a moment of silence in respect of her. Thank you. Okay, we'll do introduction of members.
Erin Zimmerman, Millville.
Charles Dunton, Blackstone.
Tara Larkin, Millville.
Tammy Lemieux, Blackstone.
Erin Binaco, Millville.
Carrie Gaudette, Blackstone.
Ted Nobile, Millville.
And we have two new student reps. I'll ask them to introduce themselves.
My name is Ashley Johnson, and I'm Student Council Vice President for Blackstone.
Thank you.
I'm Kylie Sacco. I'm the President of Student Council.
And our new interim business manager.
Yes, I'm Deirdre Farrell Welch.
Thank you, Deirdre.
Jason DeFalco, Superintendent.
All right, thank you very much. And next we have consent agenda A, our warrants and minutes of meeting for the meeting for August 25th. Looking for a motion for consent agenda A.
So moved.
Moved by Carrie. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Chuck. Any questions, comments? Okay, all those in favor of consent agenda A, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you. And just going to circle back to our student reps so they can be dismissed to their business. But like I said, we do have a new student rep joining us, Ashley, and Kylie is returning from last year. Thank you for coming back. Would you like to start so Ashley knows what to share?
So next Friday we have our homecoming dance. The theme is masquerade, and our homecoming games will be the Saturday after, so the 24th. We'll be starting with soccer, and we'll have Miss Fallis designed it so we can have like events throughout the day. We'll have music, we'll have events, and we'll have food. And for lately our sports, our football just played Bellingham this past Saturday, and they are away tomorrow night. Volleyball played Sutton last night and ended up with their second win. Girls soccer played Sutton last night at home, and girls field hockey played Hopedale last night, and they had a very good game but ended up losing 1-0.
All right, and the band just won their first competition this past Saturday in Bethel, Connecticut. And the first week of classes is in the record for books for 2022 to 2023. And the first and second activities of the day consisted of a lip sync battle on the field day, and the band's home show is going to be at Medway High School this year. It's September 24th, the day after homecoming, so if you're available, it starts at 6 and we perform around 8:15. For clubs, Charges for Change started their meetings today, Thursday, September 15th. National Honor Society and Student Council also started, and GSA had their first meeting Tuesday, September 13th.
Great. Any questions for our student reps?
Can I just confirm? So all of our homecoming games and the band's home show are the same day?
Yeah.
It's a busy
So
day.
I know, it's just hard to support each other when we do that.
Yeah, so I guess
Unfortunate.
we couldn't pick when the band's home show was. It just happened to land all on the same day.
Okay. Any other questions for our student reps? Thank you for being here. We look forward to all of the information you're going to share all year, and you are free to leave after you've shared it. I know you have other commitments, so thank you.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
Have a good night.
Terry, too.
You too.
All right, moving on, we have public forum. If there's anyone that is not on the agenda that would like to speak with us, now is your chance. Looks like everyone is here just to spectate tonight. Next up, school committee items. First on our agenda is public safety bus routes for Glenside Drive. I believe we have Timothy Roderick here from what I've seen in email. If you want to join us at the table up here, or if there's anyone else here with you, there's an extra seat if you want support there. Thank you for coming. If you could just introduce yourselves, tell us, I guess we know where you live, but so the rest of the community or anyone tuning in later will know who you are and what brings you here tonight.
I'll start. Tim Roderick. I live on 29 Glenside Drive. I'm the one who kind of initiated the request.
Okay.
Actually, I believe you sent the request for the school.
Yeah, to get put on the agenda.
Yeah.
But, so I'm Tiffany O'Brien, and I live at 18 Willowbrook Lane, which is a road off of Glenside. And we're here for the school bus safety issues and concerns.
Would you like to share some information with us? I believe we did all receive your email.
Okay, great.
And I do believe, I won't assume that everyone else knows, your history and what you've attempted. So if you want to share that with us so the public can hear it too, that would be great.
Yeah, I initially raised a request through Keith Ducharme, which was brought up to Mr. DeFalco, to kind of take a look at the neighborhood. So the issue really started from just years of the road not being a public road. It's been a private road for many years. So the bus stop was always at the very end of the neighborhood on the intersection of Park Street in Glenside. This past April, the road became it was accepted by the town as a public road. So that's when I sent in my inquiry to see if it'd be possible to have the bus come through the neighborhood. And the reason is because, in summary, which I kind of outlined on the email, is each and every morning it creates a big bottleneck, especially for the elementary school bus pickup and drop off, just because there's a parent required to be there. So, depending on the day, there could be 10 cars, lined up. There could be 6 cars, morning or afternoon. Or the first day of school, there could be 15 to 20 cars. So when all these cars are lined up on the side of the road, it makes it very difficult not only for kids to cross the street, but oncoming traffic coming into the neighborhood, traffic coming out. And my son almost got hit a couple times. Just opening the door, trying to step out to get into the sidewalk. So I thought it was time where we should probably raise the issue. After the first assessment, it was determined that the roads were too narrow to have a bus come through the neighborhood. So, I was just kind of thinking about, the argument, the counter argument against that is that, there's fire trucks, there's trash trucks, recycling trucks that come through the neighborhood, without any issue, each and every week. And then I also started to measure some of the other roads that the bus travels down currently. So I put those measurements on there. And right before I came here, which is why I'm a little bit late, the road where the bus stop is right now on Park Street in Glenside is actually more narrow than Glenside. So I thought that was interesting. So it's only 20 feet versus 22 feet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other information?
Yeah, I don't know what was in the email, so I apologize if I'm duplicating what was in there. But the other concern, or what we're asking for too, is we're not asking for the bus to stop at every house. We're just asking for the bus to stop at 2 or 3 different intersections where the 3 different roads meet within Glenside.
Yeah, I think the goal is we want to get rid of the bottleneck. So, what the plan for this year was to create a second bus stop on the intersection of Farm Street and Glenside. And I included a picture where there was already a traffic jam where, I don't know if you saw it,
I saw the email.
Pass
Did
the phone
everyone
around.
else see it?
Yeah. Where basically there are cars parked on the right side of the road. and then a car tried to enter into the neighborhood on the left side coming in, and another car was coming down at the same exact time. And it was literally like right when the bus came or was leaving. So, I mean, that's just one of like a ton of examples that are going to happen each and every week. And that's what we're trying to avoid, is just to open up, so to create, no congestion at each bus stop. Just have the bus kind of pass through, nice and safe. Just one way, one loop around. I think there was some concern about, needing to add more buses to the existing route, but I don't think we need to do that. It's really just adding 2 stops. Versus, it's the same amount of students. So I don't think there's a need for that.
Well, I can tell you, I'm not sure. I do believe somewhere in your email it said something about that you were told that the decision would lie with the school committee.
Yes.
And I can't pinpoint that in the email in this moment, but as I read it, I saw that. And I can tell you that in the 10 years that I've been here, we have never decided bus stops. We fund the buses. We make sure that bill is paid. We had purchased some equipment, some technology that would map out strategic bus stops years ago when we were trying to consolidate and make sure we were filling our buses instead of paying for empty buses. But that decision has always lied in the hands of the bus company, public safety in both towns. I definitely read through all of your, I don't want to say, all of the arguments that you've been given with the sizes of the roads, and honestly, I wouldn't even want to take time during this meeting to talk about that. We obviously all know there are much smaller streets in our towns that the buses have to drive on to get to some of our buildings and have to stop for safety reasons for the kids. However, I just want to give you some history because I was a little surprised to read that you were sent in our direction to make a bus stop change. It's not something I've ever done, or I frankly would be comfortable with, being that we have, other people, we pay the bill. So I would hate to say, oh, you're going to stop here because, the 8 of us said so.
So where does that leave us? Because we're getting,
well, so you said that you started this year with the 2 bus stops. And I mean, we did ask the chief to be here this evening just so we could have the safety feedback. I guess I'm curious if it's been looked at to make a no parking section on the ends of the roads for slated times. But even last year when our buses were about to travel down Orchard Street and we talked about making it a one-way just for school times, that was totally out with Blackstone. So, I mean, when you're telling me what the, not the problems are, but the concerns are, that's where I go as a mom, is I'm like, well, how do we make it safer for what we can do? But I definitely am, willing to open that up to other committee members to see what the feedback is. And again, I would like to hear from the chief personally.
Can I just respond to that statement? So I know there's a concern with the congestion and the safety of the children, but also if we made a no parking at the end, everybody's just going to move up. There's also a concern if someone within the neighborhood had an emergency, then we're also causing issues for a fire truck or an ambulance to be able to get through.
And up until this year, it was 1 bus stop? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and that was a big issue for me because the state law is it should be 1 mile or less to the bus stop, and it's 1.3 miles from my house to that bus stop.
Can I just ask a clarity? But the new bus stop is not as far. So the
Not
new
as
stop
far,
we're in
but the
regulation of that piece.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But up until this year, it wasn't a town street, so there was nothing we could do before now anyway. Okay.
Yeah, because I had actually reached out to Telstra when we first moved, and they had mentioned that they were going to look at possibly coming through or having another bus stop.
Just to Erin's point, I know, 10 years ago, to get the bus stop moved to Glenside and Park, because it used to be at the fork in the road of Farm and Park.
Yep.
It did not come to the school committee. We had to go to the police department to get it evaluated on safety, to get it off of that point where the kids would just kind of play in the road, basically, to get it to move. So I don't know if this is
You've already been
right
through
venue
that
for it?
process, right? You've
Yeah.
discussed it with them, and
And then it went to the town selectmen
And their
meeting.
solution was the 2 bus stops, or was that before?
The town selectmen meeting said the school committee makes the decision, so.
who said that?
Selectmen?
The selectmen said this would be a school committee decision?
Yes.
Yes.
How do you feel about that?
I would say find a solution, right? What do these guys have to
I
say?
think, yeah, I think we have to.
Could you let them come and see what, maybe
Yeah, do
they
you
have a
want us
solution
to-
for us?
We can
Yeah.
switch.
Yeah.
You can stay there if you want.
Yeah. Oh.
So I think Jason might have something to add, and that incorporates them.
Chief, I
Yeah.
have a picture for you.
Chief has to move to the mic.
I was at the selectmen's meeting, so I don't have specific recollection that they said that the school committee would make the decision. I think they said it would be a better forum to discuss here as opposed to the Board of Selectmen, just to get that up there. But as far as the school bus stops and where the school buses go, Neil from Telstones designs the routes. He's been doing it for years. Telstone's been doing the transportation for about 60 years. I'm not going to tell him how to run his business, but when he does choose the stops that he does, then we can evaluate them, which is what we've done. So if he has any input into why we went from 1 to 2, I'd be happy to hear that. And we can go back and forth, on different things between public safety and Telstones.
Yeah, back when the project was proposed, it was proposed with a stop on each end. That's why they were allowed to build the project with narrower roads than the town would normally. And I guess there was some negotiation for the water rights and everything, stuff that really has nothing to do with this, but that's why things were done the way they were done, not the proper way. And the roads are wider at the ends for cars to park than up inside of the neighborhood. And for the most part, in the district, we don't go into cul-de-sacs unless we have.
Can I object to
like
that? That's not true.
I'm just.
Yeah.
But we're not asking to
There
go in the
are a
cul-de-sac.
handful that, like, the end of town where it's safer to go into the cul-de-sac and turn around versus trying to back up on a street. We have a handful of those. We do go into Liberty Hill as a cut-through to get through to the other end because of Upper Mendon Street and how isolated that area is. But we only have a handful that we do. And if we did do them all, that would strain our infrastructure, strain public utilities. When we have to evacuate because of snowstorms, they have all they can do to keep the main roads clear for us to get the kids home. If we had to go into every neighborhood, they just wouldn't be able to do it. We don't have the equipment to get it done. So it's always been written where we've stayed, and that's where just about all the neighborhoods are. The best example would probably be Alfonso Estates, which is a very close mirror to that project. And we stop at the corner of Providence and the corner of Harkness for Alfonso because it is almost a mirror of their same template. It's actually slightly larger. There's a few more streets in there, but it's a very similar situation, and that's the way we treat that one as well. But it's not like we're picking on any certain one, it's just the way that we do things in town.
This particular neighborhood has more children in it than those other?
No, I have counts in front. I think I forwarded you all the counts. There is not that high a number.
There's a lot of baby, it will grow significantly.
Yeah,
There's
the
a lot of
development
younger
was just
kids.
completed, so there's probably another 50 infants walking around, getting pushed in a carriage right now. So.
There's 100 houses
113.
throughout all the, 113, sorry.
See, for me, the fear of having that bus coming through the neighborhood with that many people, would also, then you have kids running across the street to their bus stop or coming off the bus, and I don't know, that's just a personal thing where at least they're all congregated at one bus stop or two separate bus stops, but at a designated spot.
It's almost like you want to do parent drop-off, right?
I
I'm
think,
not saying that, I think
what's
throwing it out there
resulted-
that if I had to.
I think what's resulted.
Like I do parent drop-off.
There are families who choose.
Yeah,
parent
I think there's
drop-off
actually
just to
less
avoid it.
children taking the bus now because of the congestion issue that I'd say half the parents actually do parent drop-off now, which is creating kind of a congestion issue at the schools. So it's like one problem's leading to another, so.
Tammy?
Does everybody have to drive their kid to the bus stop, or can you just walk to the bus stop? In general, I don't
The
know. I
elementary
mean,
kids, they're supposed to have a parent there.
right, so my question,
no, they
again,
could
I don't,
walk. They
this
don't
isn't
all
a
have to
judgment, I just
drive,
don't
yeah.
know, like, so for me, again, we all have our lanes, right? And for me, Mr. Tellstone and Chief have, I don't know bus routes, I wouldn't be able to turn a bus around a corner, I don't have any judgment in that area. So for me, I try to go to the experts for safety, and Neil also covers the safety portion because he knows what he can do safely with a bus in different conditions. So for me, we've always relied on that parcel. But as we're listening to this and trying to come up with solutions that work, one of my things is, why aren't we walking to the bus stop? Or again, can we make it so that people aren't parking down and creating the bus? Because I think in one of the pictures you sent, there were cars parked on both sides.
No, that was through traffic.
Okay.
And I can answer your first question.
That might be a conversation I had with one of your neighbors about that sometimes there's people parked on both sides, but go ahead. A neighbor not here.
No, it's just, it's a long walk.
Okay.
It's, 1.3 miles, 20.
But now it's not 1.3 miles because we created the second stop,
It's not,
correct?
but it's, I haven't clocked it, yeah.
0.6?
0.6.
Between 0.6 and 0.7.
So if you park further up the hill, I did drive through in the summer when this came up to try to, because that was the first time it was mentioned, and I had never really been further than a certain person's house. So I kind of drove through to see like how far it would be from one side of the neighborhood to the new stop, the proposed new stop at the time, because that was when they were kind of debating whether to add that second stop.
I guess the issue is, have you ever walked a kindergartner, a mile? It takes a while.
So you get to the bus
Yeah.
on time.
So
Yeah.
it's been a few weeks since school started, and we've had the 2 stops. How is it working for you? Because your meeting with the selectmen was before the first day or right around the first day of school?
Yeah, I mean, there's less cars. Instead of 15 cars, there might be 6 or 7.
But now it's on both.
Yeah, now
both
there's
ends.
there's still traffic issues at both entrances now. The issue, so when there was only one stop, like all the people going to work would just go out the other entrance, and now they can't. Now there's just traffic at both entrances.
But it's for 5 minutes before the bus gets there and like when the bus is stopped?
The congestion.
Like what's the time frame we're talking about? I guess I'm just trying to get an idea of that too.
I can't speak to the elementary because
I've driven behind a school bus all the way to work. It's stressful. So I'm just wondering what time frame we're talking about here.
What do you
Like
mean?
what time you get to the bus versus the time the bus gets there. Because we're talking about traffic
Bus
in and
stop.
out of the place, like how many cars are leaving in the span that we are sitting at a bus stop? 50? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't,
I mean,
I think it depends too, because some
We have a
parents
list
might
of
come early if they were
cars that
coming
were
home
there.
from something and didn't want to
I
drive
don't think
home
it's
and come back.
something we can measure.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know if I've helped you at all in letting you know that it's not something that we would do here as a committee. And I was asking how you feel it's been for the last 2 weeks. I would like to ask the chief too, safety-wise, with the 2 stops, your opinion on that and
Yeah,
how it's going. I know it was going to be monitored.
Yes, yes, and I was there for the later pickups, which were at about 8:25, I would say. It was when the bus would come through, and I got there early and went back and forth. I'm sure some of you from the neighborhood had seen me driving through, because I wanted to see specifically rather than have someone else tell me what it looked like. And leading up to the few minutes before the buses showed up, there were cars parked on one side where the road flares out. The most I saw at Park and Glenside was 7, and one day I was there, I think there was only 3 or 4. The other side, Park and Glenside, there were times when there was no one there for pickup. The bus would pull up and there was no kids there, and the most I saw was 5 at that location. When I would drive through the neighborhood, either before or after the bus stops, I saw the same things that my other officers had told me about, which is landscape trucks in the road, dump trucks in the road, trash on Wednesdays is in the road, and you have to go to the other side of the street. You're in the other lane of travel when you approach those vehicles or those obstacles, which we feel is unsafe.
Can I ask a question about the coming winter months? Is the plan still to maintain 2 bus stops through the snow season?
That was
Because
the plan from the beginning. Unfortunately, last year at this time, the Palm Street entrance was still under construction. They finished it maybe 3 weeks after school. They were still working on the sidewalks and the landscaping, so there were still excavators parked there. So we couldn't open up that end at the start of school. So that's why this year would be the first year where we actually have the ability to open both sides. So we've only been using 2 sides now for, what, 2 weeks?
Yeah, I see this coming back before whoever the deciding body ends up being once the snow is on that second entrance, because the road is difficult for 2 cars to get by without anyone parked down there at that point. Never mind at bus stop times. So
Because of snowbanks, or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you think it would go back to 1 stop? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I think the issue is going to come back up once the snow hits the ground. Because you can barely get 2 cars going up and down
On the
that road
farm
to pass
street
when there's
side.
the snowbanks there. So just a forewarning.
Yeah, and
kids
Yeah.
have slipped on ice on Park when the bus came. I've seen it.
I still want to bring up the measurements because, Park Street is only 20 feet.
I
wide.
really don't think it's a measurement issue.
That
I
was
know,
something-
it sounds like that's what was said to you at one point. However, I'm not sitting here telling you the bus is too big to fit on that street. I don't know if he'd want to change his statement on that, but, I mean, the bus drives on smaller streets. You're not going to get an argument about that here.
Yeah.
So, but to me, it's more about, the way the route is planned out, and the safest way, which we're hearing from the chief. He's not saying the streets are too small, it's not safe. He's saying that what we are doing is safe. So I don't know that we need to get into a big discussion about measurements. I drove my kids to Millville Elementary for 11 years on smaller roads and passed a bus both ways. So it's just, I know that there are smaller streets, and I appreciate your due diligence on measuring. I think you hit all of the smaller streets on your measurements, and the bus navigates. So I really just don't want to open that argument per se, because that's not what we're saying. What we're saying is we've always put the bus stops into the hands of the people doing it and public safety, and it is not us. But so I don't know if that, I know that doesn't help you. It doesn't make the changes you were asking for. But I know myself, and if anyone else wants to speak up, that as a committee member, that these are the people we entrust with that. Did anyone else want to ask any other questions, or? No?
Do you have an association?
Yes.
You guys should come up with a plan, like some people should not drive to drop off their kids, and, you know, you're gonna have to experiment. You've only been into it for 2 weeks, so just keep an eye on it and see where it goes. Maybe things will get better.
Carpool to the bus stop? I don't know. I mean,
it's unfortunate, but
I mean, I feel like Telstone and Blackstone PD has done their due diligence of looking into the situation. They've now opened that second entrance as another stop. Both are deemed safe for kids to be picked up in those two spots. So, I mean, in my eyes, we've done the due diligence to make sure that both of those stops, instead of one, there's now two, and they're both safe spots to be picked up. And then to Kerry's point, in the wintertime when the snow comes, I wouldn't see a bus being able to get into a neighborhood on a normal day, never mind with snowbanks. So I still think that those two stops are the best route to go with.
This one's a tough one for me because I know exactly what you guys are talking about. I've been there, lived it, left it, do drop-off because of it. But I do agree with Erin, like, we entrust the safety of the kids to the police chief. So the decision then lies in that realm, not ours, which is a tough one because I know exactly what you guys are talking about.
I know there would have been other parents here too, but there's some meet the teacher nights at some of the schools.
Well, we appreciate it. I mean, I think we definitely got your email. I know that time and effort has been put into this. I would appreciate if the police and our bus company is, you know, consistently monitoring it, and if something changes, to let us know that a change needed to be made. But I think we stand by where our bus stops are at this moment. Unless something comes to us from them, then a change needs to happen. But thank you so much for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on, we have Unit B, the Unit B contract, which everyone had a copy of in.
Thank you, Chief. Neil.
Thank you. Everyone does have a copy, and we're looking for a motion to approve the Unit B contract as presented.
So moved.
Okay, motion made by Tammy. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Kerry. Any questions or comments for Jason? And I know most of it's been reviewed with us, but
No,
And
thank-
we
wanna
flagged
give us an
the, we
update?
just flagged the changes.
I was going to say thank
yeah.
you for redlining it so that it was much easier to see what was in there. And I love when I see the word OPEB.
OPEB is in there, yes.
OPEB.
Small victories. All right, so all those in favor of approving the Unit B contract as presented, which will carry July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2025, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? That's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you. And would you mind, I'm just going to pass around the signature page. Is that all right? So we get that signed and done.
Okay, and a capital planning committee update. We have Tara.
Yes, so MSBA took our statement of interest and moved it to a senior study. They were on site today. I know Jason, Erin, Scott, I'm sure others participated in that. So the capital planning subcommittee is going to regroup hopefully next week. We're going to try to pick a date to get an update and see what our next steps are. So.
Did you want to add anything about the visit today, or?
I can, or I can wait till the agenda.
You have your.
It's on the,
Okay.
whatever you prefer.
We'll wait.
Yeah,
The anticipation will kill us,
We're
but
going
we'll
to keep
wait.
people watching.
All right. Thank you so much, Tara.
Thanks, Terry.
And we'll move over to the report of the superintendent.
Great. Thank you so much. Good evening, everybody. I have just a few items under my report tonight, and I promise you the first one will be very brief. Karen is here to just give a quick update on COVID-19, specifically as it relates to just our handbook, or what little of that handbook is left. And I just want to preface this with anybody that's tuning in. None of this is actually necessarily new. The Department of Education changed their regulations. I think it was the end of May, early June last year. And we just, if you all remember, we just said we're not dealing with this right now. We said we're going to wait. It's all good. So Karen just wants to touch very quickly on those couple of changes. And then we'll transition into your next piece with us, Karen. Is that okay?
That's great.
Perfect. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm back again with more of the COVID handbook because you really missed me over the summer. So basically, with the protocols, quarantine has been eliminated. So any student who's a close contact needs to mask for 10 days, but they do not need to quarantine. If they develop symptoms, they should stay home and test. But there's no official, you have to quarantine for this many days.
As a close contact.
As a close contact.
Not a positive.
Yes,
Okay.
a positive case still is in isolation. So isolation is for positives, quarantine is for close contacts. So if you're positive, you isolate for 5 days and then mask for 5 days. So basically, wherever it said quarantine in the handbook, I removed that and put in the new wording. I also eliminated the medical waiting rooms because in most of the buildings, those rooms have been repurposed. Let me put on my glasses so I can actually see what I wrote. And yeah, just updated the rest of it.
And Karen, that's the big shift, right? It's just that, it's just the quarantine language?
Yeah.
And again, it was, if you remember, that the commissioner had came out with that update, I think it was at the end of May, and we just said we were gonna wait. So that's the only.
Yeah. And this year, we've had 29 cases in September and 6 in August. Those numbers are up from last year where we had 13 cases for the month of September, but we also had masks, so that would account for the difference.
And people aren't testing, so they don't know they have it, but they're spreading it.
Yep.
It's all around me.
We still do have at-home tests that the nurses have been giving out to students that are, I know in the high school, they come by and they ask for tests and they're given tests, and for kids that are being sent home from middle school and elementary, you know, they're always offered tests. So we have plenty of tests if anyone needs them. I also know that the town has tests. So if anyone does want tests, they're available and they're free.
Thanks, Karen.
Any questions for Karen? We did miss you over the summer, just so you know. But we hope you enjoyed your summer.
I did.
So we just need approval of just
Right,
those couple of
so
changes.
Just looking for a motion to approve the new COVID-19 handbook as presented.
So moved.
Motion made by Tammy, second by Tara. Any other questions or comments for Karen? All those in favor of approving the COVID-19 update to our handbook, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions?
I am.
Okay. Yeah, abstaining? Abstain, okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Karen.
The next item, I'm just going to tee it off, Karen, if that's all right, and I'll hand it over to you. So we have been really thinking through as a leadership team, and this isn't a new issue by any sense, but how can we best support those students that are either vaping or using other substances? particularly what we have seen more often is alcohol and marijuana. And so it is certainly, that side of the continuum is certainly not a rampant issue by any sense. But I will say the vaping issue is something that we battle daily in terms of stopping that from happening in our bathrooms and in other places in our schools, but mainly the bathrooms. So we've been in some conversation with the administrators, particularly the middle school and the high school, about how to tackle that issue. Karen, Jill, and I have talked about it a lot in terms of, what is the best way to intervene. There are, of course, consequences that are in place when those kinds of things happen, and we get it. That's one piece of it, but that's not the whole story. At the end of the day, students are using substances for a reason. And it's really important to us that we put in some safety nets for those students to figure out and kind of get to the core of what those issues are. And that isn't to say that our clinical teams are not trying to do that at the high school or middle school and really address some of those issues. And it becomes a family issue. They involve the parents in those conversations too, of course. But we are looking for what is referred to, and I know the committee's heard me use this language a lot before, like these tier 2 interventions. So kids that need something a little bit more than everybody else, that are kind of, these are the kids that are kind of on the fence. They're not sure if they should try certain things or not. Their, peers might be pushing them into it a little bit. Maybe they make a mistake once or twice. We find out about that, and how do we best intervene? What's the best way to do that? I will say a lot of the students that, frankly, just by the sheer consequence and their parent finding out, it kind of resets the behavior. But there is a cluster of students that need something more than that. And so Karen has worked closely with a couple of different agencies, and we have been invited into a pilot with about 100 schools to try what is referred to as kind of this tier 2 intervention model that families can opt in or opt out of. But Karen, I'm going to let you kind of take it from here, but I just wanted to tee it off to give the committee just kind of a context of where this came from and the why. And at the end of the day, we're trying to really help kind of reset the behavior of substance use in our schools.
So IDECIDE is for drug education, curriculum, intervention, diversion, and empowerment. So it's a science-based program to educate and empower the kids and work in their values and goals into helping them with the substance issue. It was developed by Mass General and Harvard Department of Public Health and the Institute of Health and Recovery. So it's a general program in that it can be used for any substance, alcohol, vaping, any drug. It isn't specific to any one. And there's 4 core modules that are done on a weekly basis for any student that was found to have substances or, vaping in the bathroom or whatever the issue was. With punishment to suspend them, they're home and they're using the substances. So this is keeping them in school and educating them. So it's done with a facilitator as a one-to-one or in a group format. It's, they're working on multiple languages. It's ADA accessible. There's also an evaluation of it since it is an evidence-based program. So in the evaluation, there are kind of 2 sides to it. One is student referrals. So if someone has a substance use infraction, they would be referred to the team. Parents can opt out of that, and even if they don't opt out, parent consent is needed to for them to move forward. For any student under 18, if they're 18 or older, then they can decide for themselves. And that would consist of 3 visits done at the school by the MGH staff. The other part of it would be stakeholder interviews, where they talk to faculty members, the people that are, handling the infractions, which I think is primarily the assistant principals at the middle and high school. And then there's also a school-wide survey for the students to do. That takes about 15 minutes. It's planned to happen on November 3rd. We've notified the parents via email once about this, and then we will be notifying them in another manner, probably on the school website.
Is that at the right spot, Karen? I don't mean to interrupt.
No.
No.
Oh.
There you go. Okay. There you go.
I didn't know it was up there.
No problem. You just queued it up for you. There you go.
So the survey, parents can opt out of that if they do not want their student to do the survey. And that covers demographics, mental health, substance use, and school culture.
Raindrops.
Do we just have one question, I think?
Do you want to wait for questions, or?
No, you.
So the survey part, as a parent of a middle schooler, I got the information to approve it or not. I gave up about 5 minutes into that thing, especially having a 6th grader. I think it's so over their head. I think the younger kids are gonna have a hard time with that survey. I don't know if MGH made it, like if we have any way to adjust it at all, but I feel like it's a lot. Like I don't think my kid's gonna know half of what that means. Did you read it?
Which is probably good.
Yeah, it's a good thing. Or I'm the ignorant one, like maybe I'm just like, no clue that my kid knows more than I think.
Yeah, I haven't even seen the survey.
Yeah, there was a sample where the actual one was there, and I was like, that's a lot.
Yeah.
So, just my 2 cents on that.
So there might be a lot of the younger students that are up there.
Yeah.
It seemed more aimed at the high school group
Yes.
than the middle school group.
It was definitely an older age group.
Is this a grant or are we paying for it?
There's no cost.
There's no.
Yep.
It's from the state. They're looking for in 2024 to expand it to a statewide. But right now, we're in a group of early access schools where there's about 100 schools.
And it was driven for the need to try to address the substance abuse issues we're seeing in our youth, because there has been since the pandemic specifically, has been a pretty significant increase, but vaping particularly has been a big issue. That I can say for certain has been a big issue here.
How do you deal with it now? Do you have people post that?
The bathrooms.
They're in the bathrooms?
Yeah, they're right outside. There's a sign in, sign out.
Yeah.
And there are students.
That's new.
Yes, we started that this year. And, but even with that, there are students as recent as today that were addressed for vaping in the bathroom, in both buildings.
So this is going to take place of suspension, detention?
There'll still be a consequence, but the kids aren't going, so what we've changed is the kids aren't going home. We're not going to send a kid home because they, and they weren't sent home for vaping before. But we have had in the past, not this year yet, but children come to school under the influence of alcohol, or throughout the day have consumed alcohol in the bathroom, or vaping, and now they will vape the marijuana cartridges. So in the past, there was an out-of-school suspension because you can't have substances in school grounds, which, we certainly understand. The problem is the kids would just go home to, an empty house and they would use more, right? So, we always called parents, we always got them involved. We always, if there was a clinician already involved, we'd notify their clinician if we had a release. So we did all the things we needed to. But this was really born out of that idea that there needs to be a stronger intervention at the school level. And so the idea would be to shift the consequence to just an internal. So you're going to be an in-school suspension, for 2 or 3 days, but in those 2 or 3 days, you're getting part of this curriculum. So it's supposed to be that restorative piece, but there still has to be a consequence to it because it's that balance of intervention and accountability to it. That's the theory anyhow.
I would just say being a stepmom of kids in that age bracket. So I've got 4th, 5th, and 6th grader, a 4th grader, 5th grader, 6th grader, not in our school district, but I would just ask that as a parent, they know a lot more than you think they know. And it is in their level of school, it is in their school.
Yeah.
So it is, as was mentioned, that a Tier 2 support for the students. So the facilitators would be someone who has mental health or substance use training, our counselors, nurses, those are the people for that. And there's a free training that, oops, I'm sorry. There's a free training that they'll attend before the modules can begin. The student referrals can begin at any time. So this is just more information on the school-wide survey.
And Karen, with the survey, you can opt, parents have an opportunity to opt in or out of any of this, right?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
at any stage of the game, right?
They can opt out of the survey and they can opt out of the student referrals.
And you can opt into the survey, but then you can opt out of the student referrals if you
Yep.
chose to later on,
Yep.
right?
But it says date to final opt-out 9:30.
Yes.
Yep.
Yep. So we do have to have that information back by the end of September.
So this again is just what the program is attempting to do. And so our next steps were the distribution of the opt-out letters, and we did email. We will next week do a second method, and we need to do the selection of the facilitators and stakeholders. And that's it.
All right, so you said there's no cost. This is something the state is trying to move towards for education to our kids and a way to
Help address
support
this,
them more when
this
they're
substance
already
abuse.
doing these things.
And I think it's referred to, and again, I know the school committee is very familiar with this language because we use it all the time, but it's referred to as a Tier 2 intervention, meaning that there are unfortunately students in every community that are beyond this, that this will not do a thing for. And so it's very unfortunate, and we have to work really intentionally and different with those families still. But this is really meant for that kind of middle intervention, in the hopes that this will help prevent kids from getting to that next level with substance abuse or vaping.
Are we gonna keep track of results? You know, like, kids will be taking this class and reoffend, or?
Absolutely, and part of that data collection piece is we would, but we have to anyway, right? So we'll definitely have a sense of whether this was impactful or not.
Yeah. And if it was not successful, you would drop it and not?
Yeah, we're not going to continue with something that's not working. And I also wonder, from the Mass General Hospital side, they're working with 100 of us. I'm super curious to see what that sample looks like.
Are they looking for feedback at the end of this?
Well, they're going to collect our data and be involved, in this. Yep.
Yeah, and so that'll be collected during like stakeholder interviews, and so they're interviewing kids, they're interviewing staff.
Okay. And it sounds like this, under the school-wide survey page, that the kids are doing it at school during advisory, so they'll have assistance if they need it for the ones that it might be over their head.
We're trying to find
we have to do with them.
something to help. This goes beyond just the drug and alcohol education you get in the classroom, and it can't just be when a child is caught vaping or something, that there's a discussion with the adjustment counselor and a consequence. Like, there needs to be something that is far
Before
more.
rehab.
Well, that's
Before
it, right? And the idea is that, you know, if you talk to our youth, which I know we all do, they do not have an understanding at all about the physiological impact that substances have on their brain development particularly. And they're like 15, 14, they're not thinking that way, right? I get that. But when you share that information with them, which is something I really appreciate about the way that this curriculum is designed, is it actually talks about that. Here's what you're doing to your brain when you use marijuana at 15. You're literally stopping the development and growth. And it talks the kids through the physiological side of that, which I don't, you know, they're sitting in health class and they get that information. To what degree is it being absorbed, I'm not sure, you know, but this is a much different, more intense level of that, to hope, Erin, exactly what you were saying, to hopefully prevent that from going to the next level, the substance use.
Okay, so this is something we've already started implementing. You're not here for approval. It's
I
from the
just was,
state.
I wanted to make sure the
Information.
committee was very much in the know and had a chance to talk about it and ask questions, because it is one of those subjects that can sometimes be a little bit of a lightning rod anytime you're kind of dealing with this kind of issue when you're trying something different and new. So it was very important to us that the committee was on the front end of this
May I ask a question?
piece.
Karen, do we have any resources or information for parents? Because obviously I work at a large high school. I see how many different kinds of vape, Juul paraphernalia. And this year, they passed it around to us so we could actually see like them closer. And I mean, some of them look like the old-fashioned thumb drives we used to use. So I think educating parents to know what to look for, because I think, you know, a couple of things have happened. A, those things are like flashy, and so kids think they're cool. It's not in their mind, it's not smoking, so it's not doing any damage. It's like, it's just, I don't know how they, you know, and at the same time, as a state and as a country, we're legalizing marijuana. And so that's becoming more prevalent. Before, I think adults used to, you know, sit in the back room and do what they wanted to do, but now that's out in front. So I think kids, it's like, they're feeling it's not as bad. And I think some parents are trying to do what they need to do, but they don't even know what they're looking at. They think they're looking at a thumb drive, and it's really, you know, a mechanical joint. And that's basically what it comes down to. It's crazy.
I think you said that perfectly, Tammy, in terms of how all of this is just converging, right? Coming together in the same place, and that's what we're trying to figure out. We did the Attorney General, the District Attorney's Office, does a great training called Hidden in Plain Sight, and we ran it here. It was just before the pandemic. We had I think it was about 6 or 7 parents that came, and we are going to do it again, and we're going to try to find another way to do it, to really, even if we record it and kind of blast the video out to people, we get good participation that way. But they walked through like a bedroom, like your kid's bedroom, and this is what exactly what you're saying, like these are what these things, you think these things are.
Crazy. It looks like a
and
pen.
they're not.
They have some that look like an asthma inhaler.
Yes. Well, the reason I said that is because we were doing the EpiPen, you know, training, and I was like, that looks like almost like an EpiPen. I would think like that was okay. If I were a teacher and I saw it on someone's desk, I probably would be like, okay. It's crazy.
So we're gonna be at least trying to set that up again with the District Attorney's Office.
And they are developing like a parent information too with this program, and the state has a lot of information on vaping, so we certainly can figure out, you know, maybe on like the health services page, posting that information too, so that it's more readily available for people.
That would be great. I mean, I just think parents are trying, but,
Yeah.
you know, the industry is smarter and they know what they're doing.
Yep. Yep.
All right, any other questions for Karen? Thank you so much for that.
Thanks, Karen.
Oh, I had a quick question, actually, Jason, just on, so now the students are as a consequence, are going to like in-school suspension.
Mhm.
Is that what's in the handbook, or do we have to change the handbook?
No, the handbook, that gives it as an option. You know, there's like a
Okay,
range.
okay.
So that's in that
The
range.
restorative.
Okay, great.
Right.
Falls under restorative.
That they
Thank
can-
you.
that they
If I
can-
could follow up then with that, if someone's not signed up for that, if they don't have
If they've
and
opted out.
opted out of the program, then what's the consequence compared to someone that's in the program?
So the consequence is still, we're not going to send the student home to just, be in an environment where it may be easier for them to use that. But essentially what we'll have to do is what we're doing now, which is they'll meet with a member of our clinical team, adjustment counselor, guidance, reach out to the parents, make a referral. If their parent will follow up on the referral, we hit that snag a lot where we'll offer to make a referral to an agency and the parent says no.
Right.
So then we're kind of spinning our wheels.
Is that detention or?
Depends on the issue, but it can go up to 3 days of in-school
Is that
suspension.
a lot of time to miss out of a class?
It is.
Behind.
Yeah, it is.
Right, they're probably struggling at that point, then you take them out for 3 days and it's like gonna be impossible to
work
catch up.
The work does get sent to
Yeah.
them and the teachers check in with the students,
When they're in-house.
in between classes and on their prep period and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it's the better of the worst kind of options because at least the student's still there. We can lay eyes on them. They can still meet with the counselor. They can still get their work. The teacher can still check in. But it is, it is 2 days or 3 days not in the classrooms with their teachers. It's that balance because I think the concern is if we're all intervention and there's no consequence or accountability, okay, right? Like there's kind of that mindset of, but then if we're all consequence and accountability, there's no intervention to change the behavior. You're going to get the frequent flyers that you're going to get now. So we're trying to figure out what's the right push and pull on that issue. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. Keep us updated on that.
Absolutely. Thank you. Tonight, we're going to hear a brief update from our lead tech consultant, Dan Saltzman. And this is always the kind of the quiet work behind the scenes that literally keeps everything moving. And Dan's kind of the mastermind behind that we don't hear too much from too often. But I thought it'd be helpful to have Dan come tonight and give an update, but also talk about a couple of reimbursement grants. I know we listed them on the agenda because they're kind of unique in how they're designed, but they're federal grants, and I know Dan wanted to spend a couple of minutes talking about those because the amounts are very significant that we're getting to be able to do a lot of the work that Dan's going to talk to us about. Thanks, Dan.
Okay, thanks for having me. So this is the IT update. I'm going to start out with the funding, as Jason was just talking about. So the Emergency Connectivity Fund, it's a gigantic program, pandemic-based, $7 billion, and it's new. Nobody had done it before, and there was a lot of hoops to jump through. We applied and were approved for the purchase of about $428,000 in staff and student Chromebooks. ECF should be reimbursing the district for between $350,000 and about $375,000. So they reimburse only $400 of each staff device, and the staff devices that we bought were like $700. So we're not going to get everything back on those, and we knew that going into it. But they should reimburse for pretty close to 100% of the device cost of every student device that we bought. And then under certain circumstances, they'll reimburse us for warranties and licenses that we are required to buy for those devices. So that's all in process. We have already submitted for $100,000 in reimbursements. That should be coming, could be as soon as a couple of weeks, probably more likely a couple of months, but that'll be coming in soon. The remaining $250,000 happens when we get invoiced for the 816 Chromebooks that I'm going to be talking about a little bit later on that are actually all right behind you guys in a room over there. So that's the funding. Any questions about that? Okay. So next up is our online resources, software as a service. Just wanted to go over just a couple of quick things with that. Our library systems were really aging. They were based on a program from 2003, and we've replaced that, moved it into the cloud. It was a relatively modest cost, $5,000 to implement it and $2,400 annual reoccurring. So we're really in good shape moving forward with the libraries. There's a link in here that you guys can click on. You can take a look at that yourself. But where the middle school is the first one to use it, and the other schools will be ready real soon. I'm not going to go through all of these, the learning platforms. I'll just point out that we have fully implemented Clever. Basically, all of our systems go through this single sign-on system, and that makes implementing this stuff easier, and it makes it much easier for the students and the teachers to access this stuff. So that's a great system.
Can I jump in quickly?
Please,
just
yeah.
on two things, just to make note? You might remember, I'm sure the committee recalls, the last year in the budget, the need for the library software upgrade. So we're really psyched that that's in there. And actually, I saw a sample of it at the middle school in use, where the user end, you can actually see all the titles of the books scrolling by that we have in our library that are all accounted for. And students have an opportunity to, they can click on it, they can see what the story's about, it gives them a little overview, and they have an opportunity to request the book too, which is really neat.
All of these?
It's going to be cataloged, yeah, because it was already in the old system. Yeah, there it is, right there. So you can see it, see how they kind of scroll. Our data was in this old system that Dan, was it Winnebago it was called?
Winnebago, yeah.
The fact that it's called Winnebago is funny. Like, are you kidding me?
That has now been integrated or in the process of being integrated, right?
Yeah, we had to find a company that could take our data and
have them talk.
And do it. And this company could do it. Again, the price was really reasonable, and it's working out very well. So
it's awesome.
This is the middle school, and the other schools, like I say, are basically online, but we're still finishing up the transfer of the data.
It's a far cry from the Dewey Decimal System that we all had, right? I didn't mean to interrupt, Dan.
Oh, no
Sorry, I just
problem.
wanted to make sure. I thought that was a really neat piece.
No problem. So again, Clever basically, Clever is fully implemented, and these systems, the learning platforms that we use, are also now all going through Clever. And that just really makes it easier to implement. It just makes us more nimble. We can make changes easier, and just works better for everybody. So I won't go through all these, but we have several new ones this year, and lots of other programs that we've used last year. So now just some updates on the hardware, servers and things. So we bought 816 new Chromebooks. Those, after a lot of back and forth, getting the right ones, making sure that it was going to be work within the system of the grant, we finally got those in. The third grade has all their new Chromebooks. The high school, all 4 grades are being refreshed as we speak. All the schools now have new loaners, which is great because there's frequently, problems with them. Kids forget them, they're not charged. So now instead of using kind of old machines for loaners, everybody's got new machines for that. When MCAS time rolls around, we again will have a whole stack of brand new Chromebooks ready in case there are any issues. And that's really important because when you're doing that kind of testing, the last thing you want is the technology to get in the way. This also really should alleviate the need for any further purchases of Chromebooks through school year 23-24. And then beyond that, we'll still have a lot of these, no question about that. So really a great thing. Another thing I want to point out is the Viewsonic view boards. There's one right there. I don't know if you guys can see it. We bought 113 of those, and they've been fully implemented in every building except for this one, and that's simply because the refresh cycle of this building, this is newer equipment here, and we didn't need them here. So all the classrooms in the high school, the complex, and Millville have these, and it replaces all the projectors and the smart boards, which we're definitely getting too old to support.
We won't be talking about light bulb replacements anymore?
Yeah, no
Okay.
replacements of bulbs, absolutely.
And can I just a quick anecdote on that? I was at Millville yesterday doing a learning walk with the principal, and we went into 5 classrooms, and we wanted to see math, because we have a new math program, right? So I wanted to see the students and the teachers doing the math program. It really was pretty awesome, because all of them were using their touchscreen interactive boards. And they had the kids were kind of sitting with their workbooks in front of them and their manipulatives. They had these little blocks that they were kind of pulling apart and putting on the little ladybug legs and counting their legs and all these things. But it was really neat to see the program was kind of coming to life because of the technology. So the kids that had their workbooks and they were recording all their math problems, but then they could get up and they were touching the screen and playing around with. And it was actually really neat too, because the teachers were this will sound kind of strange, but we're really frustrated because they're learning the technology, they're using the technology, and they're using a new math program, and the kids were great, and the teachers were trying to hit, like the forward button, but they were hitting the back button, and it was just kind of it was good to see like the learning kind of happening, and the kids were kind of funny. They're like, "Oh no, miss, let me help you with that." They're like a 6-year-old, But it was just very cool to see all of like what Dan's talking about with our math program particularly, like literally coming to life for our youngest kids. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, these are a huge upgrade from projectors.
It was awesome.
No question. Then on to servers and PCs. So all of our servers have now been refreshed. They're all running a modern version of Windows, which is really important. All the hardware has been refreshed, so we don't have any old equipment that isn't supported and in various states of disrepair. All new stuff. All that is redundant power supplies, redundant storage. The servers themselves are redundant to each other, so it's really made the systems a lot better, a lot more reliable. We have a 2-level backup system that's been in place. A few years ago, we really didn't have a comprehensive backup plan for the district. Now we have a file-based backup system that backs up all of the Windows computers and all of the servers at the file level. We have an image-based backup, which backs up the servers and makes restoring them, if you ever have to, much easier. And it really, it just makes it a lot easier for the IT department to sort of sleep at night knowing that all of our systems are backed up. And hopefully everybody else can sleep at night knowing that. So the Chromebooks are, all the teachers now at the high school complex and Millville no longer have PCs. They all use Chromebooks, which is, again, just really fantastic. The Windows devices were just too difficult to manage, and there was simply no point in sticking with that kind of a system. The kids all use the Chromebooks. Now the adults are on it. They have better machines, like the processors inside of them are much more robust versus what the kids use. And it just makes maintaining and supporting the system so much easier. So that's great. The teachers at this building, most of them are using Chromebooks, but they still have Windows PCs for the legacy projectors that they use. And again, those weren't as old as the other buildings, and they're still working well here. Although that's sort of next in line, is eventually we will switch to Chrome here. So the remaining Windows client PCs, and a lot of people still use them, a lot of the staff and everything will still use Windows PCs for quite some time. Those have all been upgraded to fast solid-state drives, which makes them operate much more quickly, more like a phone, kind of instant than versus the old days when you turn on a computer and it takes forever to start up. The computers are much faster. They're running a modern version of Windows. We previously had been running a variety of operating systems that were too old, and these machines are all backed up nightly. So that's a great thing. I just want to bring up this slide. When I was waiting for the night to begin, I looked back at an old presentation, and this is from a couple of years ago. I just took a screen capture of it. This is what we said we were going to do back around this time in 2020. Reduce the number of technology systems. We have definitely done that. Reduce the complexity of the technology. That's really kind of one and the same. We've gotten rid of so much of the Windows devices. We've really standardized on the Chrome OS. All this to improve the usability and reliability. And again, we've got redundant servers, and everything is just the way that you would really want it. And then add technology as appropriate. So the touch screens were something that we identified a need and said, all right, we're going to spend the money on this. The library software, we had to do that. So we picked and chose the things that needed to be upgraded, and we did that. And simplify and improve. That's what we've done. Mm-hmm. And I'm proud of the folks that work in the IT department, and thank Dr. DeFalco for the leadership in doing this. And we've really made a lot of progress in a couple of years.
Awesome. We really have. It's noticeable, for sure.
Yeah, it's great stuff. Your philosophy is a brilliant one, which is it should just work. No one should think anything about it. It makes perfect sense. That's what you want. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for your work.
Thanks for your update.
Jason, do we have training on these boards?
Yes, we have had training on them.
The staff has been trained?
Yes.
No, I literally come in and my board is.
My mention that is because the math program's also new, so watching them trying to manipulate the math materials that are new, they've had training on that too, but it's just new,
Yeah.
But they all use them, which is, we don't have that issue of it's a coat rack, that people are going back to.
They're really fun once you know how to use them,
Yeah.
but I got one in my room, my new room. No manual, just that thing is dropped off. No one tells you how to use anything. I mean, you're right. The kids are like, try that button. I'm like, oh my gosh. So at least here we did it right.
Yes, and actually when they were delivered, part of the delivery rollout was to make sure that, I think was it Nick and Sam that did the delivery of those? And then they did the training and try to find a time that the team was available to train them on that. They didn't just drop them and take off.
It's helpful.
Yeah. But it's been fun to watch.
And even better to know that we're being reimbursed for so
Yes.
much of this technology.
That's
Makes a lot possible.
It does. And my last item is to share an update on our MSBA visit today. Before I even get into any of that, I do want to say a really big thank you to our capital planning committee. And I'm looking over at Tara because I know that you chaired that group, but there was so much work. There was so much work done to even get us to this stage, where we could even apply a statement of interest. One of the things that the team shared with us on their way out was they had asked if it was okay if they send districts considering this work to visit and talk to us, because the way that we did this leading to the statement of interest is exactly how it should be done. Not rushed, very thorough, everybody at the table, lots of good conversations, had the facilities study done, have a facilities director doing the work. And one of the things that we really talked to them about was this idea of we've just outgrown the facility as far as not enrollment, but as far as programming. And that the space just doesn't keep pace with our instructional programming anymore. So, and all the work that led up to that work. And so there was really good discussion about that today, and really the district taking the right steps to get everybody to the table and keep them at the table for as long as we've been at the table before even hitting the submit button to MSBA on that. So I think that was something that I want the community and definitely the school committee and those that were part of the capital planning committee to really know that it was incredibly, it was seen, it was noticed, and it was talked about as a model on how to do that work. Now, that doesn't mean anything, right, in the long run. But the committee, and I'll ask Deirdre to speak to this too in just a quick minute, but the committee was comprised of MSBA folks and then a small team from a consulting firm that they bring with them from New York City, I believe, is where the firm is out of. And then on our kind of the community side, we had the chairman from the Blackstone Board of Selectmen and the chairman from the Millville Board of Selectmen. And I actually think that was awesome. They were both there. They were at the table. They were really listening and leaning in, contributing where they could. And I really appreciate their time, effort, and energy in being there today for that. In addition to that, we had Erin representing the school committee. And just the tenure of that was really helpful for them to get the whole backstory from your experience and perspective. And then from the administrative side, it was, obviously Deirdre and Jill, PG, Jill Fowlis, myself, Scott. So they had a really good kind of spectrum of people at the table that could really speak to a lot of their questions. But why don't I stop talking, and Deirdre, I don't know if there's anything specifically you want to share about the visit or how it went and kind of the layout and.
Sure. First of all, good evening. Hello. It's an absolute joy to be here. I've been in the district with Energizer Jason for 3 weeks, part-time, and it is truly a joy. The first day of school for kids here at Blackstone Millville was my first day of school after 6 years of not having a first day of school. And I was in the cafeteria, I was at the bus stop, I was helping kids. He had me running around everywhere. I didn't have to do the weed whacker like we did last year, from what I understand. But it's an absolute joy to be here, so thank you very much. The visit today was extremely rewarding. Not only was the district incredibly ready and prepared with information, so was MSBA. Everyone had your statement of interest. Everyone had notes on the side. Every question came from that statement of interest. Additionally, some folks from MSBA had the DOR report, the facilities DOR report, DRA, excuse me, and then the master plan. They had certain pages printed for certain specific questions and had the page number for the question. We have a question on page 162 of your master plan. We have a question because your facilities plan has your square feet at 161,111, yet your master plan says 157,990. So I said, well, it's approximately 160,000 square feet.
This is the weeds you were in, choking on them. Wow. Yeah.
So they were incredibly thorough, and we were incredibly thorough back. We had a PowerPoint that our team worked so incredibly well on, tweaking it last night, 5 o'clock this morning, and they wouldn't let us show it.
They didn't want to see it.
They said, thank you very much. We had our technology. Thank you very, very much. But here's how it's going to go.
You're saying it a little bit nicer than they did.
Oh,
I was explaining how.
So we have a format.
Yeah, well, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. He's like, oh, that's great. Sit down. We're going to do it our way. This is, I'm like, oh, okay. They just took it right over.
Every opportunity we had, and Jason was sitting over here, and I was sitting over here. And we were just working with the committee, but every chance we had, I said, well, in our PowerPoint, notice where we are. And so every chance we had, when Jason was talking about what we were doing, I would say, and some of that is on page 6. So every chance we could, they saw the PowerPoint presentation. STV is a architectural firm, a very big architectural firm out of New York City, and they also have an office in Boston. The firm STV is acting as MSBA's owner's project manager, which is called the OPM. The OPM and MSBA are working hand in hand, and from my observations, the architect here from STV was one of the best architects I've run across from the perspective of the questions he was asking of the superintendent and of the town and everyone in the room were directed at curriculum initiatives for kids and instructional programs for students. And we nailed it. We absolutely nailed it, in my opinion. While we were walking out and going to tour, we had key people on key people. I took the architect from New York City. Scott and I kind of hung with, you know, the nuts and bolts and the bricks and the mortar and the electrical and the boiler and the girls' locker room and the boys' locker room and every single nook and cranny. They had a GoPro, and so everything went with the GoPro. Look at that crack. Look at that. We were just, so they took the entire GoPro of everything as well. They have, and I'm going to get some of these numbers wrong, so forgive me. They have 22 visitations to make for SOIs that were submitted for the core program. Today was our visit. That's the 3rd out of 22 that they have to do in the Commonwealth. They are going to go through all of them so that on the December 21st MSBA board meeting in Boston, they are going to decide what 22 get invited into the pipeline.
We'll be watching that. Clearly.
Yes.
Yes. I don't know. Actually, good question. Maybe we'll go.
They said something like that.
We might be there before then.
That's right.
But so the timing was laid out to us about what the expectations MSBA had of the towns. I think clearly they understand that we are ready. We are ready right now. The feasibility study process will be very, very helpful to us, to Blackstone, to Millville, to look at what we've done and where do we want to go, because even if you get invited this year, you're looking at 5 years. If you get invited next year, you're looking at 5 years, and so on and so on. So our position to them today was, we are ready, we are more deserving, we have declining enrollment that we shouldn't be in this position for the next 10 years, yet here we are. We lost 100 students this year. They're gone from the district. And when I showed them my map of where we are, Amazon is not coming to drop a warehouse in here economically. What we need is strategies to retain students in our district. And we've done everything. The technology, the curriculum, John Hopkins, math, it's here. We need the facility. So I felt very good after the site visit today.
Erin, did you want to add anything on?
So when Jason was preparing his slideshow, he was very adamant that we need to hand them something so they remember us. We're 3 of 22, and I think they're going to remember us because of your answers and the knowledge you had to share with them. They walked away with what they wanted. They were very specific on what they wanted. The page numbers, they wanted to see specific parts of our building, and we were ready. And that came across loud and clear today. So December 21st, we're waiting.
Yeah,
for you.
countdown.
Maybe a Christmas present.
Yeah, it could
Right.
be.
Or coal in our stocking, one or
No.
two.
Yeah.
When we get the sad cookie.
So I think the important piece is now the capital planning committee. Tara, I know you're firing that back up to get that rolling again and get people back at the table to kind of do some so what, now what planning, and kind of where do we go from here. So, yeah, now we kind of wait.
I do think it's good that the chairs were here to hear the conversation, because again, I think a lot of times when we start these conversations between us and the towns, it's dollar signs that they're thinking about, rightly so, but when they're part of this conversation, they're hearing about, we want this for the teaching and learning, we want this to upgrade to be completely ADA compliant. Like, so having them part of those conversations, I think, is really helpful to be able to then, share with other members of their boards and the finance committee and stuff like that. So I'm glad that happened.
Yeah, it's good. We appreciated it very much. Anything else? Awesome. All right, that concludes my report.
Okay, moving on to the report of our business office. This will be Deirdre's first presentation to us.
Yes, so
we will go easy on you.
thank you very much. So obviously the focus was for today's MSBA site visitation. But in the spare time that I've had, the focus has been working with the business office and trying to understand traffic flows, process, month ends, year ends, timing of running reports. For example, we ran the report for your school committee. I'm so sorry. I will shut that
You
off.
want to shut that off? Go ahead.
Yes.
You're kind of missing Jane's alarm.
It's
so now we have your alarm.
I'm sorry. So some of it is timing issues. So we said, yes, run the report for the school committee, and then we processed a warrant. 15 minutes later. So I apologize for that, but the warrant that you just signed is not in this report. So I have to learn a little more about the timing issues, about presenting the report, as well as even your account number structure. All those numbers that you string together is your account number structure. And so I'm learning a lot of those kinds of things. Obviously, the first thing first is you see the deficit areas in some of your line items. And what we're looking to do is to evaluate where we have salaries encumbered that need to be moved. We've done some of that work already, but as I see, for example, health services in the negative, yet I see medical therapeutic services has money. It looks as though some building nurse, some building health teacher is being charged to the wrong line somewhere in the district. So that's the detail work you've got to go through and say, all right, who is it? Move the expense that's been charged, then move the person. So for every one finding that you find, you've got 2 journal entries to make. And so we want to be very detail-oriented and cautious about that work. And we want the business office involved with that work. Why was that teacher assigned to this account number? Is it a form issue? Is it a chart of accounts issue? What can we do to just make this a little more systematic? So that's the fun stuff that we'll be doing with some of these reports and things. I've worked very closely with your assistant treasurer. One of the first things I wanted to do is speak with Treasury and find out, you know, who's doing what as far as segregations of duties, which is very, very important. So that was kind of my first wanting to understand. We also met with the auditors. We brought the auditors in the house. I wanted to talk to the auditors and how are we doing? Do you see the same what's called material weaknesses or reportable conditions in each year's audit report? And basically they should be saying, no, you guys are cleaning those up, or if we found that you coded something wrong, we're working towards making those things better. So I've asked them for 2 or 3 years of those reports to see, do we have common patterns? Do we have some training that we could cull from? And I've also asked Jason for the professional development days for our staff, for custodians, for food service. So some of that will help stop any of these kinds of odds and ends happening, but particularly at year end. Year end is fairly brutal in a region because you've got June 30th, you've got your carryover for your teacher summer pays, you've got your federal and state grants that aren't finalizing it until August 31st. You had a changeover in your offices. Some people picked up work that they're just doing. So we have to see how they did with that work and kind of move forward from a professional development standpoint. It's good work and it's very exciting work. And I can try to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions for Deidre? No. We said we'd go easy on you.
Thank you very much.
We'll give you a month.
Oh, you've been warned.
But I did run the open purchase order reports and it balanced out, if that matters. So we're working towards it.
Thank you.
In regards to the personnel report, you have that in your packet. It's a receive and file document. You can see our new employment by building, by unit. And you can see those staff members that have resigned and moved from the district. We certainly take the opportunity to welcome all our new staff to BMR and the district, and wish all our other folks well as they move on from our district.
Thank you for that. All right. And moving on to facilities, we have Scott here to give us an update, and then we have a request.
Good evening.
Hello.
So, facilities report's getting a little shorter. Big summer projects have been completed. For instance, you'll be glad to hear, and you won't hear anymore, that the baseball dugouts have been completed. So we can cross that off the list. We have industrial burner. They've come in and replaced one of the 2 heating coil units. The other one is still on back order, but I'm assured we'll have it before winter heating season. Industrial boiler is also going to replace the pressure relief valves that our insurance inspector wrote us up for. I was trying to get a quote from a local plumber, guy that does plumbing for us. He flat out said, I don't carry enough insurance to cover these. If I snap something off inside the boiler, my insurance is not going to cover it. So we're going to go with industrial boiler, who has more experience with this. Carbon monoxide detectors have been installed in both the high school and the middle school, as requested by our insurance inspector. The infield work has begun on the girls softball field. I started removing that, and that's just about completed, and the new infield mix was supposed to arrive last Wednesday, but due to the heavy rains, they could not get down on the soccer field, per se. We don't want them sinking into it, so I postponed that. And we'll be watching for the weather, and quite honestly, I'd rather wait till after the soccer season is over. This way, in case there is any damage to the field, we have time to repair it. So I'll work with them on that. At the middle school, like I said, we installed the carbon monoxide detectors. During last week's heavy rainstorm, we did have a couple of small leaks, one in the storage closet in the gymnasium, and one in the guidance office, which happens to come down through the flashing on the chimney. So it's just something we've got to get up there and recaulk. I've done it once already, like 5-6 years ago. Oh, sorry, I missed the high school. The high school did have a leak as well, but it comes through the drain pipe, down the wall, into the boiler room. Leaks inside the boiler room. So if there's any good place to leak, it's probably inside the boiler room, because we do have pumps down there that would pump the water out in an emergency situation like that. Okay, and on to JFK, AF Maloney. So the playgrounds. I feel this is something we shouldn't rush into. It's a large amount of money. I'd rather take our time, do it right. So I reached out to a company called Ultiplay, which happens to be in Blackstone, located in the old Blackstone potato chip building, in case you're interested. A little history there. So they put together a couple of quotes for us already. I went over them, trying to make it work best with the money that we have. So he's supposed to submit a new set of plans to me and a new quote, basically for the JFK AF Maloney playgrounds. Like I said, I want to get it right. Same thing with the Millville playgrounds. We're just basically waiting on the JFK AF Maloney quote. And over at Millville, they had one pretty significant leak in classroom 204. That's coming in through the flashing, where I don't know if you realize where the green room is on the second floor. It's right at the front of the building. And that's coming down through the flashing. So we just have to get up there, locate that, and just, I'm gonna recaulk the whole flashing just to be safe. Hopefully that's the end of it. The only damage was a couple of ceiling tiles, and we had to relocate that class for the day. And that concludes the facilities report. Questions, concerns?
I was at a home soccer game the other day. We had our first home game of the year. And the talk of the dugouts and the fencing, it was the first time really parents had been to the back fields in a while. The teams have been playing up on the track, and everyone was, that looks nice. When is that? Like, that's all the facility work that's been going on. So great job. It was noticed back there.
No more chasing soccer balls down the bank and into the poison ivy.
Or baseballs.
Or baseball.
Baseballs.
The baseball backstop's high enough now where the ball won't go over it.
Yeah, it looked good.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to getting the infield done. The girls softball. That's gonna look nice.
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that'd make a big
Be all
difference.
nice and edged and
Great.
soft. So, looking forward to that.
Excellent.
Any
Perfect.
questions?
No,
or-
just gratitude. Thanks,
Yes,
Joe.
thank you.
And I don't know if anybody's noticed, I know Ted has, but the football field has grown back rather nicely. It's nice and thick and requires to be mowed twice a week now.
That's a good
Blessing
problem.
from Mother Nature.
Oh, yes. That's a good problem. Thanks, Tom.
We have one use of facilities request for the Hartnett PTO for tomorrow. Tomorrow night,
Boy, I
social,
hope you
sixth
say
grade.
yes.
Anyone want to chaperone?
So we should say yes.
Wow, that's great. So moved to approve
All
it.
right, motion made by Tammy. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Kerry. All those in favor of the facilities use, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Unanimous, thank you. And we will move to committee forum. Does anyone have anything they'd like to share specifically? Questions?
I could just tail off that PTO request, that it's great that school is kind of back to normal, however you want to quote that. So I know for middle school, we have the 6th grade social tomorrow night. There's plans for a 7th grade social, 8th grade luncheon. This year, the big fundraiser has been a color run. We're moving it to October this year. So it'll be like the color packets. The kids will just all get to go out and have like a
Do you have a date on that?
October 7th. We actually had a PTO meeting last night where, or whatever, Tuesday night. One night this week. And we'll be working on getting everything home as soon as possible because that's coming up quick.
I signed up for it on Open Door Day, but it didn't have a date. I was like,
well, yeah, we were waiting for Ms. Cotillo to approve all the dates. We had tentative stuff before while we're waiting for the principal to be locked in. And she seemed great. She's been great to work with, especially on the PTO side. So
It's good to hear.
So the middle school fundraiser then is like the week before the elementary's big move-a-thon.
I was wondering what the date for that was.
I think it's the 12th, maybe
Okay.
13th.
I love that they're
A
still
little bit later in
that.
October.
Yeah. Great.
is that
Such a
both
great
buildings?
Both buildings do
Is
it.
both. Good.
And they're probably 2 different days still,
Yep.
though, right? Yeah.
Yep.
So fun.
Any other committee forum? I will mention that if you haven't gone to our website lately, I know it's still a work in progress, but it just go to BMR, what is it?
BMRSD.
BMRSD.net. And I mean, it's bright and beautiful. So I appreciate the attention that has been getting. I went there over the summer for a few things and quietly said, I think we need to look at this. So actually I haven't gone to the school committee side of it, but there were things from 2018 on there, and I said, oh boy. So I don't even know if that's been touched.
Yes, that's been cleaned up.
Okay.
Yep.
But just landing on the homepage is a difference, so thank you for the attention to that.
Yep.
Homecoming weekend is before our next meeting. I know you said you'll be attending.
Yeah, I'm going to try to get to as many as I can, if not all of them. Yep.
Yeah. It's
I may
just a
have a
great,
little charger horse with me too.
oh, that would be
Decided
great.
I think I'm gonna get my son to wear the charger costume and drag him all over.
What can we bribe him with?
Oh no, he likes to wear the
He
thing.
does.
Yeah, I have to. It's just I worry about getting him in it because I can't get him out of it.
Yeah.
So that's the problem. Yeah, really, like that's
So
the problem.
if any of you are out and about and can attend, people do notice when we are there. I know that it does not go unnoticed. So if you have time on September 24th to attend any of the athletic games or the band show later in the evening, I'm sure we would be the talk of the town. Our next meeting is, actually, are we changing it to a workshop?
It's a workshop. Yes. Yep.
So on here it says, so school
Yeah,
committee
it'll be a
workshop
workshop.
will be September 29th at 6 PM here. And if there are no other items, Erin?
Yeah, I just thought of one. So the CPAC is putting on a Truckapalooza event at the high school on October 2nd. They have a huge amount of town vehicles and other municipalities that have come in to have trucks available for kids to get in and beep the horns and pull the sirens and all that. We've got involvement from both Millville and Blackstone, confirmed to be there. They also have a car show and food trucks and a bunch of other games and events going on all that same day, and it's all to benefit the BMR CPAC.
Great.
It's at the high school, right?
At the high school, yep.
Good to know. All right. Perfect. So, barring any other items, I am looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, motion made by Tammy. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Erin, thank you.
They made me.
I know. I was like, wait, I know that came from over here.